The Kellys Theos F90 review. How does it downhill? How does it climb? How does it trail ride? How does it jump? And most importantly, is this super enduro electric mountain bike right for you? Riders, welcome back to Sam's Bikes, where you know we only talk e-bikes, and welcome to South Australia or Dinga Beach. 1 week left of the holiday and we are reviewing the Kellys Theos F90, which I've been lucky enough to ride for the last 3 weeks. And before we crack on, let's thank those sponsors, Schwalbe, Quadlock and Insta360, all amazing products, all helping Sam's Bikes out. And Kellys and Will Ride in Adelaide for allowing me to test this bike over the last 3 weeks. Ever since the Kellys Theos was released, I have been wanting to get on this bike. It's made all my top 10 lists. I absolutely love the look of this bike. I think it's super beautiful. I love the low standover height, the super clean lines, and I find it really interesting. The Theos is made out of thermoplastic hybrid steel carbon composite by robots. The Theos F90 is a hard-hitting super enduro electric mountain bike, rolling on mullet wheels and a whopping 180 at the front and 170 in the rear. Shimano EP8 and a 725 watt-hour battery, coming in at a very respectable 22 to 23 kilos depending on size. Geometry numbers in a large: reach 483, head tube angle 64.5, seat tube angle 76, and a chainstay of 459. I think the Kellys engineers have absolutely knocked it out of the park with the Theos F90, and quite possibly we're having a glimpse at the future of electric mountain bike engineering. But as we know, riders, we can talk about the geo and the frame construction for hours. Well, I can, but let's go see how it rides out in the trails with a bit of POV style. Okay, legend riders, my favorite part of all the reviews, the Insta360 POV, how does it ride? Well, I've been on the Kellys Theos for the last 3 weeks. I've been bloody impressed with this bike. I've had so much fun. And first up, when I first got on it, looking at those numbers, like 180, 170, you'd think it'd be a bit of a pig to ride, but you'd be wrong. It actually feels a little bit like a end trail. So not a trail duro, an end trail, a new word for us riders. So it's got enduro characteristics, but it's actually a very good trail bike as well. Better shut up, this is pretty hard, this part. Yeah, it comes in at 22 kilos and that 64-degree head tube angle is it's definitely different. And I like it with a mullet. Like with a mullet, with a mullet and a longish chainstay, it definitely feels more like a 29er. Feels like I can sit in the middle of the bike, where with a mullet, you sit off the back of the bike more. And definitely the thermoplastic frame made from robots. I'm gonna say I like it. Like it feels. It is super sharp and stiff to ride. Definitely direct. And where that battery sits lower in the frame near the bottom bracket, it really does make this bike for a super enduro really snappy to ride. Let's talk about probably why you came to this review. How does it downhill? Well, this bike, as you would expect, likes to get thrown off some pretty hard trails. I found the suspension off the top pretty not plush, if I'm honest. It was pretty harsh off the top, but once you got into your mid-travel or your active sag, it actually came alive, and it loves rock gardens, it loves going fast, and it just eats it up. And as I said, for a big super enduro bike, it does feel very nimble, but with those 459 chainstays, you do need to have better wheel placement in the tighter corners. You definitely need to take more care getting it around like tighter switchbacks, but it's fine. It's definitely shines more open, sort of downhilling, and yeah, that's what the bike is for. All right, so on to how does it trail ride? Well, as I said, you would probably think it would not be a good trail bike coming in at, 180, 170 suspension, but I've been blown away. This bike really rides very nimble with that 64-degree head tube angle. I've been very impressed. Super sharp steering, and also like it because, okay, it doesn't feel cumbersome and big, but it has your back if you need it. So if you case something or you need to ride, and you come into something big, it definitely has your back with that 170, 180 suspension. And talking about casing, I did light this bike up on the first day, jumped a reasonably large set of doubles. Second day on the bike, I'm pretty sure, and it is super confident, super easy to jump, and planted, like definitely room for error with that 170, 180, but also you do want to lift a little bit more because that 180 at the front does suck up a bit of that lift at the start. So to get it in the air, you need to put a little bit more effort in yourself. But once it's in the air, I had a great time, great jumper. And then when all the downhilling's done and it's time to head back up the mountain, the Theos is not a bad climber. We're on a fire road at the moment. Fire road climbing is completely fine. You're gonna get up anything. Where I did find a bit of trouble was on the steep technical climbs. Now the bike's got the Shimano EP8. It's also got 170 cranks. It also has 11 speed with the biggest tooth on the back, 46. All that combined, and also 180 at the front. So my stack height is pushing me off the mountain. All that combined, I did find I was running out of torque. I also found that it was quite hard to keep the front down. But we are talking about seriously steep technical climbing here. It's not a mountain goat. It's definitely not the best climber in its class, but on any fire road or any normal single track, you're gonna have no problems. We're back at the beach, riders, and let's talk suspension on the Theos F90. So the F90 has 170 mils of rear travel, and this is using Kellys ThinkLink suspension system, which is a virtual pivot. So we have one solid chainstay here, and we have two linkages or two pivots up here. Now, the bottom pivot or linkage does sit rather low, but when you are sitting into your travel, so when you're in your active sag, that linkage does go up higher and it doesn't cause any problems. I found the Theos to sit up in its travel. It didn't bottom out too easy, and I did feel a nice separation between that mid-stroke and the bottom out. But I didn't feel a lot of plushness on the initial part of the stroke. Now, that could come down to my setup. This is the first time I have been using the RockShox Super Deluxe, and it did take a bit to get it feeling plush-er, but I would have loved to have tried it with a Fox X2 or even EXT coil, because I think this bike with a coil would really set it off. The Kellys Theos is powered by the Shimano EP8 with 85 Newton meters of power. The EP8 is a very natural feeling motor and super quiet. Now, when you're going downhill, it does have a bit of a rattle, but that rattle is determined on the material that the frame is constructed. So aluminium conducts it not much, carbon more, and it seems like thermoplastic about the same as aluminium. I'm also going to mention, riders, the EP8 is lacking power at that top end. Not a lot, but if you compare it to a Bosch, a Bros or a Yamaha, you are going to be putting in a bit more effort. I was really happy to see a 725 watt-hour battery in the Theos F90, co-developed by Kellys and BMZ, because the Shimano EP8 can be a little bit thirstier than the Bosch, the Bros or the Yamaha, so it uses a bit more power to get the same range. But I did go out and do an epic unofficial range test with the Adelaide crew. We rode 53 Ks, 1,500 meters of vertical climbing, 3.5 hours in the saddle, and I came back with 15% battery power on the Theos F90, which is really impressive. And also something really impressive is the size and the weight of the 725 watt-hour battery. So the battery actually comes up to about here in the frame. So what does that mean? It's basically going to put all the weight at the bottom of the frame here and keep the steering quite light on the bike. I really like that. And also, it's coming in at about 1 kilo lighter than some of the competitors with a big battery. And also with one 6mm Allen key, no keys on this bike, you can take the battery out. So it is a really clever design. So before the Theos was released, I had no idea who Kellys was. So I did a bit of research. Kellys was founded in Slovakia in 1991. Kellys have over 300 employees, and they're also selling their bikes, their road bikes, their mountain bikes, their city bikes, their touring bikes, and their electric mountain bikes in over 30 countries. So they're not exactly a small startup business. Let's have a deeper dive at the frame and how it's constructed. I believe it is the first ever electric mountain bike to be made out of thermoplastic hybrid steel carbon composite by robots. So why is it so good? Well, Kellys are saying it's better for the environment because it's 100% recyclable. It's made in Europe and it's less labor intensive. It's 2 times more impact resistant as carbon fiber, and it's the same weight as carbon. But because it's stronger than carbon, you can use less material to obtain the same strength, making the overall weight lighter. I absolutely love the look of the Theos frame. I love the low standover height, but it isn't all for the looks. The Kellys engineers wanted a low profile frame. They also rotated the EP8 motor and had the battery very centered to keep the weight as low as possible. Now let's go into sizing. And the Theos is available in 2 sizes, a medium and a large. I'm 183 centimeters and I have been riding a medium. And I've found it for Adelaide trails, which are not super fast, they're quite switchbacks, quite technical, actually really hard trails. I found a medium a really good fit for me. Now, this will be the first medium I have ridden, I think ever, just to tell me that the e-bike market is making these bikes bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, a medium, if I was gonna be racing or I was going to the Alps at 183 centimeters, I probably would go a large. I think you very much need to pick that sizing for where you're riding. And also with the low standover height, anyone can ride a medium and anyone can ride a large. It comes down to the style of the rider. The Kellys is available in 2 long travel models, the F70, 7,299 euros, and the F90, which I've been testing, 8,999 euros. I personally think the F90, coming with this spec at 9,000 euros, is well priced. What do you think, riders? Put it in the show notes. And also the Adelaide riders out there, if you are interested in getting one of the Kellys Theos, check out Will Rides. He's stocking at the moment, absolute legend. And Matty, thanks so much for setting this bike up for me, legend. And also the Australian riders, check out in the show notes where you can buy your Kellys Theos. And it's not all gravy, the things I have not enjoyed about the Kellys Theos F90. Number 1 is the water bottle. It is great to see a water bottle holder on the bike, but this water bottle fell off, I think, 3 or 4 times in one day, and then I just didn't use it anymore. I'm gonna say if you're gonna ride this bike, you're definitely gonna need a backpack or just ride with a bum bag and 1 water bottle holder. Maybe a fidlock is gonna work. And the overall build of the F90 is fantastic. We've got Fox 38s, we've got Schwalbe tires, we've got DT Swiss wheels, we've got Shimano XT brakes. It's really good, but then there's some interesting parts that I don't think I'm a massive fan of. We've got an 11-speed Di2 Shimano electric gear changer, which is from like 2018, 19, not something you'd expect in a futuristic bike. And also, we got 170 cranks, which I'm not a fan of either because the Shimano EP8 likes to be in high cadences, and with longer cranks, it's harder to keep it in high cadences. And I've already mentioned the low standover height of this frame, which I absolutely love. But it's a bit interesting that it comes with a 150 dropper on a medium bike. I would prefer a 175 or a 210 dropper so I can really get that seat out of the way. And also for a super modern futuristic bike, I would have loved to have seen a flip chip in this bike or even a reach extender. Because they've only made 2 models, I'd love to see maybe go 5, 10 mil back and forth, so it makes it a little bit more wide ranging for the riders. And also a flip chip because it's 180, 170 suspension, and we've got 64-degree head tube angle, which is not exactly steep. I would love to see a flip chip be able to make this 63.5. So who is the Kellys Theos F90 for? Well, it's a super beautiful bike and it's a boutique brand. So I definitely think it's for someone looking for an e-bike that is gonna stand out and is a little bit different. Also someone that's looking for an enduro bike that does ride a little bit closer to a trail bike, but it does have that support when you really need it. And I also see it perfect for the environmentally conscious rider out there because this frame is 100% recyclable. And now down to the $1 million question, is it a yay or a nay from Sam's Bikes? I'm gonna say it's 100% a yay. I had a fantastic time on the Kellys Theos F90. I loved that it had 180, 170 suspension. I also loved that it didn't feel like a big super enduro electric mountain bike. It felt kind of a little bit closer to a trail bike, but then had your back when you needed the big hits. Really like that 64-degree head tube angle. It wasn't, sluggish. If you look at the geometry, you would think the bike would ride differently. I was really impressed and surprised by this bike. Anyway, riders, I hope you enjoyed this 3-week review of the Kellys Theos F90. I had a fantastic time. If you have any questions on this bike or any other electric mountain bike, put it in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed to Sam's Bikes, please do so. Share it with like-minded people, and we're gonna see you next time.